Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. And I have actually just tried to record this video because I'm trying to switch away from recording through my phone. I'm trying to actually have a setup and a background and all that. And I've made one, but I need to fix my audio. My audio is so bad. So for now I'm using this app that fixes it at least a little bit. I'm getting a mic, but right now I just need to use this because my audio is just so bad on my camera that I can't use it. I listen to it, I'm like, ah. So this may be bad, but it could have been a lot worse. But basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about players who are most likely to be traded at the deadline. Now I have gone through all 32 teams. Out of 32, I came up with 22 players total who I think could be traded at the deadline. And yes, there is one per each team, and I'm going to be going in alphabetical order. So I am sorry to you, Winnipeg. I know you always get abused by this, but you're going to be abused again. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe I'll switch it up someday. But for now, let's start off with an Anaheim. And from Anaheim, who I think will be traded from the Anaheim Ducks this trade deadline, is Anthony Stolarz. Anthony Stolarz is a goaltender. He's 28 years old, and he is a player I think could be traded because I don't see Anaheim making any big moves. They're just outside of a playoff spot, and I don't think they'll get back in, but they're pushing it, and I just can't see them full selling with being this close to a playoff spot. I just don't see it. But Anaheim, this is a player I could see him trading. Stolarz having a pretty solid season. Last season, a pretty solid season. Obviously hasn't played many games, but a team that's desperate in goaltending will be willing to take Stolarz. In Anaheim, they got Lucas Dostal coming up eventually, and he looked good in his couple games. So Stolarz is definitely a player I could see them trading. But moving on to the next team, and that is the Arizona Coyotes. And from Arizona, I think that they are most likely to trade. A pretty obvious one, let's be honest. There are actually a few options I could have gone with, but I went with Phil Kessel. Phil Kessel, right now, is actually having a pretty solid season for himself, especially considering the atrocious team he's on. He's a UFA this summer, and he's being paid $6.8 million, but by retaining half of that, there will be teams that are willing to take him. He's getting older, but once again, a very solid season. Arizona could get some good assets. They should be able to get at least a first rounder for Phil Kessel. At least. There's no way they don't. And I see them trading them this year. Where Jacob Chikrin's, they probably trade him, but I think they definitely trade Phil Kessel this year. Moving on to the Boston Bruins. So haven't missed the team yet. From Boston, I went with left winger Jake Debrosk. Jake Debrosk requested a trade at the start of the season. And it hasn't been fulfilled, obviously, as he's still there. And he hasn't really bounced back the way that you'd hope he have. He's an RFA at this summer, 3.675, half retained, someone will take him. And someone will probably take him full. You could probably, if you're trying to get a good player before the playoffs, you want to make a playoff push, this could be a last run for Boston. Maybe Boston wants to give up a first in Debrosk and get back a good player, something like that. But Debrosk is definitely a player that needs a change of scenery and definitely a player that I think will be traded by the end of the trade deadline. Moving on to Buffalo. From the Buffalo Sabres, I decided to go with I haven't heard many talks about this guy, but I decided to go with Victor Olofsson. Victor Olofsson is 26, so he's still young. He puts up some solid numbers on Buffalo. And honestly, if he wants to re-sign in Buffalo, I think they re-sign him. But if he doesn't, which I don't know why you would, but maybe he does. I don't know if anything's come out about that. Then I think you trade him because he's got value. You could get good assets for Victor Olofsson. A very solid player, has been for the last few years. And he's just very good cap hit as well. So, I don't see a reason to not trade him. You don't even have to retain if you don't want to for some teams, for sure. But Victor Olofsson is definitely a player I think that the Buffalo Sabres should look into trading. If he doesn't want to stay. If he wants to stay, then he should probably resign. He's young enough that he could still be part of their future. This streak ends where I go through every team because we skip a couple and go to Chicago. From Chicago, I think that they will trade goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury. Now, this was a pretty obvious one. He's old. His contract's ending. But Marc-Andre Fleury has put up some solid numbers this year after a horrendous start. It was terrible. He had an 830. So considering his save percentage now, he's been very good. And he is a player that you'd have to retain half at $7 million. But he'd also have to waive his no movement clause, which apparently he didn't for Edmonton. I heard. I don't know if that's true or not. But it's funny because there's been rumors of him going back to Vegas and going back to Pittsburgh. But there will be interest in Marc-Andre Fleury. And Chicago, I think, needs to use Marc-Andre Fleury in order to get good assets. And who knows, maybe they could even push for a first. I don't think they'll get it, but they could push for it. You know, you never know. But moving on to, speaking of goalies, the Columbus Blue Jackets, who I think their most likely player to be traded this offseason is Jonas Carpassalo. Jonas Carpassalo is having a rough season after last year's rough season. And it might have been a rough season the season before that. So basically what I'm saying is that he hasn't been a very good goalie the last few years. And I don't know why I would take him if I was a team. I don't know why any team would take him right now. I just don't see it. I think he's one of the bottom goalies in the league right now. And I just don't understand. I think he's overrated a bit. And I just don't understand why you'd necessarily trade for him. Because I don't know. Like, Edmonton rumors again. Every goaltender in the league has rumors of Edmonton, and please don't do it. Please don't. But he's $2.8 million. They trade him away, and I don't think you're getting much back for Korpisalo, if I'm being honest. But I still think he's likely to get traded, as he is a UFA at the end of the season. I don't think he will re-sign. Add him to the list of stars who didn't re-sign in Columbus, right? Moving on to Dallas. From Dallas, I've decided to go with defenseman John Klingberg. John Klingberg is 29 years old. And that's actually part of the problem with why I think he's going to get traded, is because he wants a long-term contract for a lot of money. He's 29, and I don't think he's worth a crazy amount of money. Don't get me wrong. I think he's worth a pretty solid amount of money, but 8 years just is a lot. Like, that's till he's 37, man. Like, this guy is... I think this is one of those contracts that just wouldn't age well if you decide to go long-term for a lot of money. Right now, he has a very good cap hit. The only reason I don't think he'd be traded is Dallas right now is battling it out for a playoff spot. And they're probably going to get it. I don't want to say they will, but it's between them and LA, I think, right now, pretty much for the most. And Edmonton, I guess. You could throw Edmonton in there. Why not? So Edmonton, them, LA, and Anaheim. Mostly not Anaheim, but Anaheim's still in there. And that's the only reason I don't see him trading him, is because maybe they want to make a playoff push. But if they are not, and for some reason they fall out, I expect John Klingberg to be traded. Like, no, don't be surprised when he gets traded. But moving on to Detroit. And from Detroit, I went with Vladislav Nemestikov. Now, I don't think Detroit's going to be making any big moves this offseason. I think they're going to be pretty quiet. But nothing to really big sell or anything. But Nemestikov is a player that I don't think will necessarily be a part of their future. That also is a pretty solid player that they could get some pretty decent assets for. He's a UFA this summer. He's only making $2 million, which would make him appealing to other teams. And if another team wanted to bring him in, they could definitely have him on their third line. A team that's in need of some depth, stuff like that. So Detroit, that's who I think that they would trade that's who I think they will trade. From Edmonton, I have another goaltender. I have Miko Koskinen, who is 33, he's a little old. A high cap hit for Miko Koskinen, but I don't think Oilers will be selling Miko Koskinen to sell Koskinen and get stuff back, because they wouldn't. They'd actually have to pay teams. But I think that they will be like, let's say they want to go out and acquire Flurry, for example, the one that you hear the most about. Oilers would need to get rid of cap hit to bring Flurry in. So you would get Flurry half price and you'd send Koskinen over. It would be something like that. If the Oilers go to trade a goalie, they're going to need to send another goalie over, and that goalie will be Miko Koskinen. Miko Koskinen not having a great year this year. Not bad, but just not great. About what you expect from Miko Koskinen. And he's just... Sometimes he allows goals that you're like, man, you can't allow that. But he does. And I just think that the Oilers would send him away because they need a goalie. And if they're going to trade for a goalie, they're going to have to get rid of one. Right? Moving on to LA. LA, I don't see making any crazy moves. But what I do see them possibly doing, if they aren't... Let's say, same with Dallas. It's like, Dallas isn't competing a playoff spot, they do this. If LA isn't quite in the race tight, then I think they sell off right winger Dustin Brown. Dustin Brown, getting older, on the expiring contract, and I could see them trying to get something for him at least. Trade him away for half price, get something for him, sort of like they did with Jeff Carter a little bit, but Dustin Brown's a little younger. So get something for Dustin Brown, and yeah. But obviously, if they're in a big playoff spot, I don't see them doing this. But Dustin Brown, that's what I got for LA. Moving on to the Montreal Canadiens. And the Montreal Canadiens, they obviously have just made their big move of trading away Tyler Toffoli, which honestly is probably who I would have gone with before that trade was made. I probably would have gone with Tyler Toffoli. But now that he's gone, I've gone to, because they're definitely not done. They're selling. They're not good. I've gone to Ben Sherratt, defenseman Ben Sherratt. Ben Sherratt always been pretty solid defensively. Doesn't really put up much offensive numbers. And you know what? Considering he's on Montreal, the team that's like one of the worst team in decades, like the last few decades, it's been horrible, historically bad. And Ben Sherratt's putting up some pretty like decent numbers there. So his plus minus probably isn't great. I don't have it on here, but I can tell you it's Montreal, so it's definitely not going to be good. But I think this is a player that you could probably get a second for. And the funny thing is I'm hearing the teams might be willing to give up a first. I don't think Ben Sherratt's worth a first-round pick. This is a guy who you can throw on your third pairing. Don't give up a first. Probably a second-round pick for Ben Sherratt is honestly pretty fair. But Montreal looking to get all the assets they can get. Anything they can right now to get their rebuild. Ben Sherratt's, I think he's gone. To New Jersey. New Jersey, the second time doing this video. You get a little tired. Probably 50 minutes of recording right here. New Jersey, I think that they will trade away Pavel Zacha. Pavel Zacha right now, he's having a bit of a down year. Now, I don't know if they will trade him away, but it's possible if they want to get some stuff. Because he's on a pretty cheap cap hit, having a bit of a down year. And who knows? You know, he's an RFA at the end of the year. And he just hasn't turned out well. And you hear stuff about, like, teams like Vancouver being interested or something like that. So maybe a team like Vancouver gives him a shot, sees if he can bounce back over there. But right now in New Jersey, like, he's still young, you know, he could get better. But that's what I think that they send away. From the Rangers was a bit of an obvious one for me. The New York Rangers, I went with prospect Vitaly Krapzov. I might have said that wrong. I'm sorry. But he is still very young, only 22, and in the KHL, he's putting up some decent numbers. In 19 games, he has 6 goals, 7 assists for 13 points. And this is a player who requested a trade earlier in the season after they tried to send him down to the minors. He had enough. He's like, nah, I'm not going down to the minors. So he requested a trade, and it just hasn't happened. But I think he'll be traded because it's like, if Vancouver does have to do with this, but if the Rangers want to go out and acquire JT Miller, then they're going to need to trade away a first and something else. And that something else would likely be Vitaly Krapzov, I think. So Vitaly Krapzov, I definitely think that he will be gone by the trade deadline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Ottawa. Here we go. Ottawa. From Ottawa, I think that Ottawa will be trading away Tyler Ennis. Tyler Ennis in 41 games has 5 goals, 7 assists for 18 points. He's a UFA at the end of the season, and he's very cheap. And the interesting thing about me picking Tyler Ennis is that Tyler Ennis was already traded by Ottawa 2 seasons ago to the Oilers. So it would be pretty funny because he could be traded again from Ottawa. They just keep getting rid of him. But again, he could re-sign there and then get traded again probably. Just become a cycle. But no, he's having a very solid year in Ottawa. And in Edmonton, he didn't get as much opportunities getting in Ottawa, and I think they should have given him more. But now that he's getting that opportunity, he's showing that he can be a very good third-line forward and maybe even play on that top 6 if you really need him to. So teams probably be interested in a cheap middle 6 forward like Tyler Ennis. From Philadelphia, one of the most obvious ones on this list. Let's be honest, we're all thinking it. So let's just say it. 3, 2, 1. Are you ready? Claude Giroux. Yep, pretty obvious. Claude Giroux, expiring contract, expensive contract, but worth it. Very good player, and I don't think he's gonna re-sign there. And a team would want him. You know, he's got that veteran leadership. He's been a captain, I think, for a while now. And he's a very good player. And if you can retain half, then you'll get so many calls from so many teams. And you hear stuff about Colorado wanting him. You hear stuff about all these teams being interested in him. I think you might have even heard, like, a team like Vegas maybe even being involved. But Claude Giroux, he has been pretty solid and just, like, he's going to be traded. I don't see him re-signing at the end of the year either. Moving on to Pittsburgh. From Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh will be trading away Casey DeSmith. Casey DeSmith is obviously a goaltender, and he's not having his greatest year right now. .897, I believe. And he's just, Pittsburgh, I've heard they want to shore up their goaltending tandem, and in order to do that, just like Edmonton, you're going to have to send out a goalie. And for Pittsburgh, that goalie is Casey DeSmith. Cheap cap hit. You know, you want to pick up Flurry. Again, rumors about Flurry going to Pittsburgh. You send away to Smith the other way, and you pick up Flurry. Just that goalie balance, send cap hit away. But no, he hasn't been great. And I think Pittsburgh wants to shore up that goaltending headed into the playoffs. You know, you got that Flurry tandem again. That sounds like a pretty good tandem to me. Moving on to San Jose. From San Jose, I have forward Tomas Turtle. Tomas Turtle, a very good forward. And he has 38 points in 47 games, always been up close to a point per game. And his contract also pretty solid. So really, there's no bad thing to point out about Tomas Turtle. Right now, though, there's going to be a lot of calls. Once again, Colorado being a team that's been rumored. And Hurdle just has so much value. Like, if you're San Jose and you don't think he's going to re-sign, and if they can't get a contract worked out by the deadline, there's no way Hurdle stays there to the end of the season. There's no way. Because if they can't get a contract worked out by the deadline, that probably means he gone and you didn't get nothing for him. So I can't see them not trading away Hurdle. And they're not really necessarily competing for a playoff spot. They're a little bit outside. And I for San Jose, I don't see it getting closer. I'm sorry, San Jose fans. I don't see it getting closer. From Seattle, I think that they'll be trading away defenseman Mark Giordano. Giordano having a decent year, nothing amazing. He's a UFA at the end of the year. The only thing holding him back from being traded and getting a lot of assets is his cap hit, which is pretty high. Obviously, Seattle would have to retain half of that, but Mark Giordano, he is a guy that a team might want to bring him on for the veteran leadership, for some of that solid defense, veteran leadership type thing. And they definitely could. Like, Seattle, they'd get some assets back. I would not expect anything crazy, though, for trading away Mark Giordano. Maybe like a second and something else, maybe possibly. But with three teams left, and the third last one is Toronto. Now, Toronto tried something. They did some sort of what's called a experiment, let's say, this last season. And that's what they're calling it, at least. So this experiment, like, you know what? We're going to take this youngish guy, we're going to put him up, and we're going to see how he does, all right? He's been solid other places. So they did. They signed this guy to 2 years at 2.5. And man, it's gone terribly because they just waived him, he cleared, and it's Nick Ritchie. Nick Ritchie right now is in the AHL. Only 9 points in 33 games. But this is, I think he's been playing like up on the top line sometimes, so that 9 points is really disappointing. And Nick Ritchie is a team that some teams could be interested in. It's not a crazy cap hit. And he's already been cleared, which means it would be more attractable to other teams because they wouldn't have to send him down on waivers themselves. So it's not like you buy him, send him on waivers. Oh, looks like you traded that stuff away for nothing. No, but Toronto probably looking to clear some of that cap space away. And just other teams, I think they'd be interested in maybe giving the Nick Ritchie experiment 2.0, if you know what I'm saying. But from Vancouver, the jersey of the team I was wearing when I actually shot this video. From Vancouver, I'm going with left wing JT Miller. For Vancouver, I chose JT Miller. JT Miller right now is over a point per game, and he has had a fantastic season. He has been dominating. He's at his highest value. Like, if you're Vancouver right now, how do you pass over, like, trading him away? Because his value right now is so high. You get so much for him. Like, they get way more than Toffoli. It's just, I don't see how you pass by a trade right now. Not only this, but, like, his cap hit's low, considering how much points he puts up, and he's signed through next year. So, like, you could get so much for this guy, and this is definitely who I see Vancouver trading. The last team on the list is the Vegas Golden Knights. Never mind, second last team. And Vegas, I think, is trading away Evgeny Dadonov. And this is not because they want to get assets. This is because they need money to... When you go millions of dollars over the cap hit, all right? And you have injured guys, and then they all come back, and then you need to lose money. You have to trade someone away. And that guy, I think, will be Evgeny Dadonov for Vegas. They could probably give up a few things to like an Arizona or a Buffalo and get them to take on Evgeny Dadonov's contract. It runs through next year as well. But they could get someone to run through his contract and just be able to try to carry all these guys that they've signed for so much money. But moving on to the last team now. And this is the Winnipeg Jets. And from Winnipeg, I can see them trading away at the deadline Paul Stastny. Paul Stastny, in 35 games, has 20 points, which may be a little disappointing. But once again, his cap hit's low. He's a little older. And Winnipeg, not looking like they're in a position to make the playoffs right now. But you never know. They're just not looking like they're a team that's ready to make the playoffs. And Stastny, he could get some things back if you're selling. You could get some decent assets back for Paul Stastny. Nothing amazing, but some decent stuff. And right now, I think that might be what Winnipeg needs, is just to sit back, a little bit of a retool, and then get back in it. And selling Paul Stastny would help begin that process. Not like a full-on rebuild. They still got a solid core there, but they need a little bit of a retool, I think. But thank you for watching if you're still here. This video took a long, painful time, about an hour of shooting total because I've done it twice. So thank you for watching. Man, I'm going to go and I'm going to eat something, so I'll see you next time.